What if the most unsettling part of a tragedy is not what we know, but what we are never allowed to confirm? When a young public figure passes away, answers are usually expected, statements are issued, timelines are clarified. Closure, at least in form, is offered. Yet in the case of Yu Menglong, questions continue to linger, not because people are careless, but because clarity seems persistently out of reach. Tonight, Update X24H looks at why this case still resonates, why public curiosity has not faded, and why some observers believe that forces far beyond the entertainment industry may be shaping the silence. Silence is often misunderstood as neutrality. In reality, silence carries weight. It shapes perception, invites interpretation, and over time becomes a message in itself. In cases involving public figures, silence is rarely accidental. It is measured, calibrated, and sustained. When information is withheld or delayed, audiences begin to sense that what is missing may be just as significant as what is shared. The absence of clarity does not calm public concern, it quietly deepens it. In the case surrounding Yu Menglong, official responses have been notably restrained. Statements exist, yet they feel incomplete. Answers appear carefully framed, avoiding detail rather than offering reassurance. This creates a psychological gap, one where trust struggles to take root. People are not unsettled because they expect sensational revelations. They are unsettled because uncertainty remains unaddressed. Human nature seeks coherence, especially when a life has ended. When coherence is absent, silence becomes the loudest element of the narrative. Over time, this silence transforms into a story of its own, not one of accusation, but of unresolved tension. It leaves viewers with a lingering awareness that something essential has yet to be fully explained, and that awareness does not fade easily. What begins as entertainment news rarely stays there when patterns start to emerge. Initially, public attention focused on an individual career and its sudden conclusion. Yet as observers examined the surrounding circumstances, the conversation naturally widened. The focus shifted away from personality and towards structure. Not who someone was, but how the system around them functioned. Questions arose quietly, then collectively. How do decisions travel through large cultural organizations? Who determines which matters receive sustained attention and which are gently set aside? Where does accountability reside when multiple institutions overlap? These are not confrontational questions. They are analytical ones. They reflect a growing public awareness that modern industries do not operate in isolation. Entertainment, finance, governance, and influence often exist within the same ecosystem, bound together by shared interests and mutual caution. As these connections become more visible, audiences stop asking for individual explanations and begin examining the framework itself. The story evolves from a single case into a reflection on how power circulates and how easily responsibility can become diffused when too many layers stand between events and answers. Beyond institutions and structures lies the most overlooked element of all, the human cost. For many viewers, the emotional impact does not come from dramatic claims, but from quiet realization. The realization that talent, dedication, and public recognition do not always translate into security or protection. The realization that visibility does not guarantee voice. Invisible barriers are often more powerful than visible ones. They do not announce themselves. They do not leave evidence. They simply redirect outcomes, quietly and efficiently. Careers slow, opportunities fade. Names are no longer mentioned in rooms where decisions are made. This is where audiences feel the deepest connection, not through celebrity, but through familiarity. Many recognize this pattern from their own lives. moments when effort met silence, when potential was acknowledged but not acted upon. The discomfort comes from understanding that such barriers are not personal failures, but systemic limitations. And once that understanding takes hold, sympathy turns into reflection. The story becomes less about one individual and more about the shared vulnerability of anyone operating within a system they cannot see, but must still obey. Allegations endure not because they are loud, but because they remain unanswered. When clarity is postponed, speculation does not need encouragement. It emerges naturally, filling spaces left open by incomplete explanations. This is not driven by hostility, but by the human instinct to seek narrative consistency. Importantly, much of the discussion surrounding this case remains cautious. Observers frequently emphasize uncertainty rather than certainty. They ask questions rather than assert conclusions. This restraint is telling. It suggests that what people want most is not drama but understanding. Allegations persist when trust has not been restored. Each unanswered question subtly reinforces the previous one. Over time, even neutral statements begin to feel insufficient, not because they are false, but because they are too limited to resolve broader concerns. This persistence is not a sign of defiance. It is a sign of engagement. People continue to care because they believe that openness matters and that transparency strengthens institutions rather than undermines them. Until meaningful clarity is offered, the conversation will remain active, not aggressive, but unresolved. Perhaps the most significant outcome of this case is not controversy, but consciousness. There's a noticeable shift in how audiences consume information. Viewers are listening more carefully, comparing narratives, and noticing what is emphasized and what is omitted. This attentiveness does not manifest as outrage. It manifests as patience and memory. Awareness grows quietly. It doesn't demand immediate answers, but it doesn't forget unanswered questions either. People become more discerning, more reflective, and less willing to accept closure that feels procedural rather than genuine. This type of awareness is subtle, yet enduring. It reshapes expectations. It encourages audiences to value transparency over speed and substance over reassurance. In this sense, the story's lasting impact may extend far beyond its original context. It contributes to a broader cultural shift, one where viewers do not simply consume narratives, but engage with them thoughtfully. And once that shift occurs, silence is no longer invisible. It is noticed, remembered, and gently questioned, long after the headlines have moved on. This is not about reaching a verdict. It is about acknowledging unresolved questions. As long as uncertainty remains, public interest will not disappear. Not out of hostility, but out of a shared belief that clarity matters, and that truth, when handled with care, strengthens trust rather than weakens it. Sometimes the most important stories are not those filled with noise, but those surrounded by silence. Thank you for watching Update X24H. If you value calm analysis, thoughtful storytelling, and balanced perspectives on the stories shaping our world, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us continue exploring topics with care, depth, and respect. Stay curious, stay thoughtful, and we look forward to seeing you in the next update.